Well, happy Monday to you. Thanks for giving me 5 to 7 minutes. I trust that you had a great weekend. You were able to find a church or join us for our morning worship either in person or online. There's a buzz around here and excitement around here today because it's the first day of Heartland Christian School, and we're excited at the 25 students that we have going. So lots of good activity going on around here at the church. Well, today we're going to be looking at 7 books of the Old Testament. We're going to be in the books of 1 Kings through Esther. So if you want to familiarize yourself with where those are at, we're going to be talking about that. But before we get into the books of the Bible that we're going to look at, let's remind ourselves of the study of the Bible, of God's Word. The Bible is spoken. It is literally breathed like creation. God spoke the world into existence just as he spoke the Bible. And the contents are God-breathed. The words the authors recorded, God told them what to write, and they recorded them. So the words that we have, the words that we read today, are actually God's written, spoken word that he recorded for us hundreds of years ago. There are 66 different books written over 1,600 years. There were 40 different authors. Some of them were kings. Some of them were prophets. Some of them were leaders. Some of them were disciples or apostles. The Old Testament, remember, is written mostly in Hebrew, while the New Testament is written mostly in Greek. And the Bible was organized by rabbis or by councils based on specific and careful guidelines. And that is a fun study. If you're interested in diving into that, I have some content to give you if you want to go further into how they looked at the different Bibles, the different councils, not different Bibles, different books for what was included and what was not included. If you want that, let me know and I'll get you that information. Well, there's a quote by George Santayana. He was a Spanish-born American author of the late 19th century. And he said, if we do not learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. And I think that's so very true today with what's going on. I think it's also even more prudent and more true in our own lives. If we don't learn from our mistakes, we are doomed to continue to make those same mistakes. So as we look at the next 7 books of history in the Old Testament, we're going to look at 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. And this is part 2. So if you want to go back and look at Thursday, that was a longer devotional. So this is going to tack on to where we're at as far as the Old Testament history books. So let's get into it. These books are going to continue the story of Israel's divided kingdom, the Assyrian invasion, the Babylon invasion. They're going to talk about the years that Israel was in exile, and then they're going to talk about Israel being removed from exile and then rebuilding what was left of Jerusalem and Israel. So 1st and 2nd Kings is about a list of the kings. It's evaluation of each king. Now, it values their obedience and the dangers of disobedience. Now, it's interesting when you read 1 Kings, here's what I've done, and I did it about halfway through. So next time I read through 1st and 2nd Kings, I'm going to color code my Bible. And I would encourage you to, if you use the YouVersion Bible app, or if you're a highlighter in a written Bible, that you underline or highlight every time it says that a king did evil, and then highlight in a different color every time it says, and a king did good in the eyes of the Lord. You're going to see a stark contrast in 1st and 2nd Kings because many of the kings lived in disobedience. And it's going to teach us the value of obedience and the dangers of disobedience. 1st Chronicles is a review of King David's reign. We love King David. He was a good king. He was a godly king. He was a king after God's own heart. And 1st Chronicles is all about David's reign. 2nd Chronicles is about the kings of Judah. Now remember, after Solomon's reign, there was Rehoboam. And under Rehoboam's leadership, Israel splintered into 2 different kingdoms. There was the north, which was called Israel, and there was the south, which was called Judah. And 2nd Chronicles is a looking at the kings of Judah, which are the kings in the southern kingdom. Now, side note, all the kings in the north, there was never any good king. But there were good kings in the south. Good King Hezekiah, good King Josiah are 2 that come to mind. So 2nd Chronicles is going to chronicle or track those kings and the good ones and the bad ones. Ezra, after Second Chronicles, we roll into Ezra, and Ezra, it focuses on the rebuilding of the temple. When Israel was taken into captivity, they came and they destroyed the temple that Solomon built. It was completely demolished. So Ezra is talking about the rebuilding of the temple. Nehemiah focuses on the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem and around the city and the city of Jerusalem. So Ezra and Nehemiah are all about construction after the demolition of the invasion. So this is a good 2 books to read about how they rebuilt. Some of it is difficult reading because it's not really action-packed, but Nehemiah is a fun read because they rebuilt the walls in 56 days. Great book to read when you're trying to organize and cast vision for how to unite a group of people towards a common cause. And then finally we have Esther, the book of Esther. And the theme of Esther is that in all circumstances, God is in control. And what a great reminder for what we have been going through during this pandemic the last 7 months, that through all things, through all circumstances, God is in control. Probably one of the most famous verses that we say in the church and then also in society is, "For such a time as this." And that is what Esther said, because the Jewish people are ready to be removed or annihilated by Haman. There you go, Haman. Edit, bleep, go back, by Haman. And Haman wanted to destroy the Jews, and Esther was put in there for such a time as this to save her people. And she was obedient to the call of God. This is a great story if you have little girls to read this. Even boys can learn from stepping up and using your influence to move people closer to God and His Word. So that is the next 7 books we just covered in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes. So I hope that you go back and read that. It's going to take time. I don't anticipate you reading it in one day, but pick one. If you're looking for a shorter read, Esther is a shorter read. Nehemiah is a shorter read. 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles are a longer read as well. So you pick, but continue to read God's Word. Continue to highlight. Continue to make notes. That's interesting. That's not interesting. That's relevant. This is a good thing to remember. So as we roll into Monday and as we finish up with our devotions, the questions I have for you is, what have you learned from your past? What have you learned from your past that you do not want to repeat? My dad had a saying, he said it to me since I was 16 years old, and I'm going to be 39 here in a couple weeks. And I still think about it, if not weekly, then monthly. And he said to me, "Tom, a dumb man does not learn from his mistakes. A smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the other person's mistakes. Young son, be wise, be wise, be wise." So I would encourage you with the same admonition of, what have you learned from your past? What have you learned from your past that you do not want to repeat? What can we learn from Israel when they valued obedience and when they did not value obedience and they lived in disobedience? How can we learn from their example? Second question I have to take it further is, how can you help someone learn from your mistakes? Who can you mentor? Who can you lean into to help guide them closer to the Lord? If there's anything I can do to help you, I hope that you'll reach out. I hope you have a great Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow for the poetry books of the Old Testament. Have a great Monday.